Hi everyone, hope you're doing well on this Easter Sunday and taking good care of yourselves. Today I've got some pretty chill BF4 gameplay for you, as you can see on the gorgeous Rogue transmission here using the L85, which was always one of my favourite assault rifles in Battlefield 4. In terms of the stats and the damage, the recoil, the accuracy, it was just a great all-rounder, and you can put it to some serious good use, especially on a map like this against infantry at varying distances. So today, a bit of a live com, and I've got a couple of topics that I wanted to talk about. The first topic is, of course, based on the title of the video and the next Battlefield game. So based on the earnings call that EA did, we know that there is a Battlefield game due to be released in fiscal year 2022. So that probably means October 2021. But with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, there's no doubt that the games industry will be hit and affected massively by this. And there's already been delays to some of the games that were supposed to be released this year. And I can imagine that because of what's happened and a lot of the studios are now in working from home only mode, there may well be delays to future projects. That means that maybe the next Battlefield game will be delayed too, and perhaps we won't see it until March 2022 or October 2022. My point is, it's what feels like a long way away at the moment. So with that context, what is the multiplayer FPS audience going to look like in, let's say, March 2022, based on what's happening today? At the moment, one of the most popular first-person shooters is Call of Duty Warzone, and that is a free-to-play 150-player game. We've also got incredibly popular multiplayer shooters, which are Fortnite, Apex Legends, and even something like Counter-Strike Go or Valorant, which is due out in the summer. My point is that right now in 2020, a lot of the most popular first-person shooter multiplayer games are free-to-play, and they've got massive audiences. And if we think about what makes Battlefield popular and what makes it fun, I reckon that most people would say, well, it's the multiplayer. From my personal experiences, I think the only good single-player campaigns that Battlefield has had were BF3 and Bad Company 2. And I'm not saying that people don't like Battlefield single player, but I'd say there's a pretty strong argument that people play Battlefield mainly for the multiplayer. So theoretically speaking, I'm making a few assumptions here. Let's say that the next Battlefield game is multiplayer only, and I personally would like to see it that way. And with that said, if it does release in a few years, will it be able to gain popularity? Will it be able to compete or get fans of the franchise playing again if it's a full-priced title? Because right now the competition is really strong and it's completely free. Other games have caught up with Battlefield now and exceeded it in certain regards, and I'd argue that it doesn't really have that unique selling point as much anymore. And what I mean by that is lots of players per game and combined arms with infantry and vehicles. So will Battlefield have to go free to play? Well, I think if it is a multiplayer only title, whatever comes next, then maybe it does, unless it's offered at a lower price bracket. And even then, can it compete and remain a popular game if it isn't free when there will be so many other alternatives by then? It's obvious that there's a trend in the multiplayer FPS genre in particular for free to play and live service. You get in the game for free, and if you want to, you can opt in to pay for a premium battle pass that usually just offers up cosmetics or guns that can eventually be grinded for if you're not paying anything. It's a system that Fortnite, Apex, and now Warzone have implemented successfully. But if the next Battlefield game isn't free to play, that's a massive barrier to entry. By that point in time, I think it will almost be an expectation for multiplayer focused or multiplayer only games. I think this is a really interesting discussion, and there's no doubt in my mind that both EA and DICE, the people who plan the future of their franchises, the Battlefield franchises, must have already thought about this and either put a plan in place or decided to continue with a paid-for release. Because if you're developing a free-to-play multiplayer only game versus a multiplayer game with perhaps co-op and a full single-player campaign, the way that you build that is probably very different, especially when you're talking about EA and how they operate with their investors. Free-to-play with microtransactions, I'd say in the past, maybe it's been seen as a bit of a risk. Whereas if they look at things and go, right, okay, if we put a AAA Battlefield game out in this fiscal quarter, we can estimate that it will roughly sell this many copies and make this much money. However, based on the current video game climate and also the example that Apex Legends has set for EA, incredibly popular game, free to play with MTX, maybe they're not so scared of that now. And with that context, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the next main Battlefield game was multiplayer only and free to play. Because if you think about it in terms of those traditional AAA first-person shooters like Call of Duty, let's say, okay, in 2019, Activision released Modern Warfare, and that had a single-player game, it had co-op, and it had a big multiplayer suite. It's this whole incredibly polished arcade package that you would expect from a Call of Duty game. It sold insanely well. But how many other first-person shooters nowadays could do that? I don't think there's anyone else but COD that could actually pull off that kind of product nowadays. Battlefield have attempted it in the past, and it was most successful in doing that kind of thing with Battlefield 3. And even then, people just gravitate to multiplayer. That's what Battlefield is about and where it excels. I don't think Battlefield has ever had a good reputation for a solid single-player campaign. And I reckon that the most popular single-player games nowadays that are classed as AAA aren't first-person shooters. Instead, they're third-person action games, RPGs, and games that are really heavy in story and their characters. God of War, Spider-Man, The Last of Us, Final Fantasy. I'd say there are probably a few exceptions to the rule though in the first-person genre, and I do think that these are games that live in their own little bubble. For example, Doom. The Doom remake in 2016 and recently Doom Eternal. Incredibly popular, great game, but people just play that for the single player. It does have a multiplayer component, but I've played it, I don't think it's very good, and you don't often see people talking about the Doom Eternal multiplayer. It's all about the campaign. Halo, maybe, that could be a contender there too. And of course, if someone like Valve released Half-Life 3, yes, most people would probably buy it and play through the whole single player. So in 2022 or October 2021, is it realistic for Battlefield to release that kind of game and it to be popular? Well, I think there's definitely a possibility for that, especially if it's a solid product that delivers on everything that it promised. But when I personally think about the future of multiplayer FPS, I just don't see it being anything but free to play. And maybe it would be a good thing for the franchise too. Launch it free to play, multiplayer only with cross-platform support, which I think by 2022 will also be a standard thing in the biggest multiplayer games. Let people in the door, let them taste that Battlefield thing that maybe they've never tried before, or they've experienced with other games that have launched and been buggy and just gone, you know what, this franchise sucks, I'm going by, I'm never going to buy one of those games again. But if it's free and it's a quality product when it launches, then perhaps those people will stay. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea if the next title went free to play? Think about the games that you're regularly playing at the moment. If they're free, have you paid for them? Think about your expectations, and would you be prepared to pay for that in the future? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. A free-to-play Battlefield, in my opinion, has so many positives. Yes, there are some negatives too, like anti-cheat, for example. I think that would have to be absolutely top-notch, and it has to be said, for the last couple of DICE games, BF1 and BF5, I don't think their anti-cheat has been great, and I definitely feel like we've seen an upsurge in people complaining about cheaters. I had a personal run-in with one when I tried to stream Battlefield 1 the other day, and it wasn't very pleasant, kind of ruined the game for everyone. So the anti-cheat would have to be absolutely on the ball and regularly updated. Also, I'd like to think that DICE have had a bit of practice now with the live service model based on what's happened with BF5. They've got a ton of data and feedback on what people loved, what they hated, how regularly content should be updated and dropped, and what exactly keeps people coming back and logging in and playing the game. So you would think that they could use that information and data to pave the way for future products, especially those using a live service model like a potential free-to-play Battlefield. Anyways, like I said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I do think it's a really interesting topic, and maybe it's something that's already been considered. Maybe it's been considered before and dropped, or perhaps this will become a reality. Who knows? With that said, if you enjoyed today's video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.